Our title for this video is Brown Rice and Woodstock, Nutrition in the 60s. My staff has written some questions again, and the first one is, what's your take on nutrition in the 60s? A lot of ferment and change in the nutritional world, just as there was socially and politically throughout the world. The beginnings of alternative medicine were happening in the 60s, and my beginnings toward radical change of diet were happening also. Our next question, isn't that when Prevention magazine became really popular? Yes, it was. Prevention had massive circulation. I read, beginning in 1966 or 67, I read Prevention magazine, and it was really the popularization of particularly taking vitamins, but also whole foods and brown rice instead of white rice and fresh vegetables and even meat from natural sources a little bit. So it was the beginning of all that. Our next question about the 60s. I read in one of your books that you started drinking raw milk on Martha's Vineyard in the 60s. What made you do that? Well, that was a follow-up to my becoming very ill in 68, and the doctor telling me that I should have my colon cut out, and I decided I want to go figure out what condition my condition was in, and I got into natural foods out on Martha's Vineyard. I was living out there for several months, and I was eating mostly salad and fish, which is great, but gets a little boring when that's all it is. I knew that milk didn't work, and I got the notion that maybe natural milk, raw milk, would. So I started going to a dairy and getting raw milk, and lo and behold, it worked very well. It was a great dairy with grass-fed animals, wonderful milk, a lovely lady who was their milk salesman there. I didn't get anywhere with her, but I stuck with the milk. And that was my introduction to raw milk.
The next question.
Our next question on the 60s. I heard once that you especially liked a certain kind, this is that wise guy again in our staff, but I promised I would accept all the questions. I heard once that you especially liked a certain kind of brownie made with a certain herb. Is that true? Yes. Next question. Do you see a link between the revolutionary social changes of the 60s and people's perceptions about nutrition? Very interesting question. I do see a link. It was happening. People's perceptions about nutrition were drastically changing, at least a lot of the people I knew in the 60s, and there certainly were revolutionary social changes. And that has, there's a seed there that grew throughout the decades that we'll be talking about as I go along. And fundamental is the understanding that the revolutionary social changes revolved around not accepting everything that the man passed down to you. So the revolutionary changes in the social changes in the 60s definitely involved nutrition, and that's when the co-ops were really starting. There were co-ops springing up in places all over the country where people got together to buy food and to buy it more reasonably than they could buy it through the usual commercial venues. And that involved whole foods and whole grains and farm fresh food. And that started in the 60s, blossomed in the 70s, and carried on from there. So we'll talk about that in our next video about the 70s. We'll talk more about that. So to kind of summarize the 60s, I got very sick with gastrointestinal problems in particular, a follow-up from my cavities and bone problems in the 50s. I started to get well by shifting to natural foods and raw milk. And that leads us right to 1970, which is really the year of the culmination of all of the social unrest in Kent State and strikes in colleges and the war in Vietnam and brown rice, people getting introduced to natural foods. And so we'll continue that story in the 70s, where I will discuss, among other things, my journey into vegetarianism. Thanks for coming to this video, and we hope we'll have you at the next.